Outlet Liquor is your place to buy a case. Stock up and save when you shop the lowest prices available every day at Outlet Liquor. You never have to wait for a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at Outlet Liquor.
What's your outlet?
Welcome, everybody, to episode 132 of Two Goalies, One Mic. I am Duane, here joined by Hurls, and hopefully soon Johnny Cullen. We will have to wait and see. But I digress. A lot to talk about. Specifically, as you pointed out in when we were texting yesterday, Connor, the latest from Matthew Fairburn from The Athletic, and his roster projections, and kind of did a deep dive into the depth of the team and what to expect for next season.
Yeah, I think it's that time of year that I think getting into that discussion is a good thing to do, because it seems pretty clear that the guys that they have right now are going to be the guys that are there opening night. And the line discussions, I think, is a good conversation to start at. I think we all know who the top line is going to be. It was one of the best lines in the league last year in Tage, Alex Tuch, and Jeff Skinner. They have a lot of chemistry. They produced at an incredible rate last season. I think they were a top five number one line in the league last season. I don't think anyone thought that was going to happen. So starting right there, I think, is a great place to go. Like, I guess the question comes down to, is there any type of discussion of breaking them up? I personally say no, given how well they play together. But I think it's at least worth discussing. Like, what would you do if you were to even it out a little bit?
Yeah, there's no chance in hell, I think, that you're breaking up that top line unless they just randomly really struggle. They were the third highest scoring team in the National Hockey League last season, second highest scoring in the division. In my opinion, possibly the toughest division in hockey. While I don't think it got insanely better, it also just didn't. I don't think it got worse. And outside of, I don't see the Bruins repeating what they did last season. I don't see much changing, at least from the landscape of the division, other than, again, maybe Boston falling off, depending on what other moves they decide to make here in the offseason. But yeah, there's no way you break up that line. Every team that, if you're expected to contend for the playoffs, you need that stud first line where, you can almost depend on them to create opportunities and scoring chances every single time they're on the ice and keep the other team pinned in their own end. And that's what that line did consistently last year.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we've seen what Tage can do at center, the creativity that Alex Tuch has on the wing, and also the goal-scoring capability he has, combined with Tage's playmaking himself. And then we know what Jeff Skinner's good at. He's good at scoring goals, and he also has an element of playmaking creativity himself. So I think all three players really, really feed off of each other, and they know each other's tendencies. They know where each other's going to be. You saw all of the incredible goals that they scored. Like, they're not just scoring, like, garbage goals in front of the net. They're scoring highlight reel goals from all three guys, maybe less so Jeff Skinner because he's being set up and he doesn't necessarily have that type of skating and stick handling ability that Tuch and Thompson do. But the three of them together are producing some of the more insane goals in the history of this franchise over the past season and a half. So to take that type of ability away from the top line, I think would be a disservice to all of them. I think they all like playing together. I think it's reinvigorated Jeff Skinner's love for the game. You saw how happy he was doing in between two stalls last season. Like his personality's coming out. We all love to see him smile, and him being on a line with two 25-year-olds who are as talented as Tage Thompson and Alex Tuch is the best possible thing that could have made his $9 million a year contract actually worth it. Like after what happened with Ralph Kruger, putting him to the fourth line, benching him, scratching him, publicly trashing him, I don't think any of us thought that Jeff Skinner's $9 million a year contract for the next 4 or 5 seasons was potentially ever going to be worth it again. But the way he's playing and the way he's projecting, and especially who his line mates are now, it legitimately will be worth it if he keeps up this pace. So I think we can all agree that that's a really, really good thing.
And I don't think he's going to be like Kyle Okposo age when that contract is up with, too. No. He still probably have a couple good years left in him.
No, and the way he plays, like he's a grinder.
Healthy.
Like
he's healthy.
And he scores goals. And he's a durable guy. He hasn't missed many games in his career. And you see him get in there. You see him to get into scuffles. He thrives on getting under people's skin. He's like the toughest guy on that line. So it's the perfect line. He's a scrappy guy. It's the perfect line. You can't break it up. So I think all of us can just rest easy at night knowing that Skinner, Tage, and Tuch will be together, and you can just write home about that one and not worry about it.
I mean, he's 31. Birthday he'll be 32 in September. Wait, no, actually, no, sorry. That's not his birthday. His birthday is in May. No, so he will hit 1,000 games by the age of 30, at the age of 31. As long, knock on wood, he plays this entire season. He will hit 1,000 games.
Coming from a guy who just turned 31 this past Thursday, that means a lot.
Happy belated birthday, bud.
Thank you. I got a shutout 3-0 on my 31st birthday last week. Actually.
Cool. My team lost 6-1. 6-2.
Well, at least be happy for me there because that was a men's league shutout doesn't come around that often.
No, they're tough to come by,
especially at age 31 because I consider that. I think actually in all sports, once you hit 30 run, you're in the twilight of your career, no matter what sport you're playing. Maybe not in golf. But just about every other major sport, you can consider your 31st season or your age 31st season to be oh, I'm out of my prime now, So at least mentally for me, that was nice. But from Jeff Skinner's perspective, I don't see him slowing down for at least the next 34 seasons.
I made an absolute, even though we lost, I made a highlight reel ESPN top 10 glove save Sunday night too.
Well, windmill?
No. So they had a kid that was an absolute, this is a team we normally beat, a lot to a little, but, they play hard and, always a fun game when we play the Pylons. But good group of guys. You never have issues with them. You know what I mean? Just really laid back guys. But they had a ringer this time around, an absolute ringer. Hands down, I would say easily the best skater. Overall player, probably in our entire league, in the weekend A division. I don't even think that's even, the kid, he was like the Sidney Crosby of men's league. He skated through everybody, flipping the puck up on his stick, tapping it around. Anything he could do, he did it at will. It was just wild. And we play, we have a pretty good team. We don't ever play up to our potential, but, it's men's league. I would say it felt, watching us play on Sunday night, it felt like half our team was either just not engaged at all and maybe the other half was drunk. It was bad. It was like a lopsided skate and shoot in my end, which is very abnormal for when we play these guys. But whatever. I had him on a breakaway earlier in the game, and he essentially, the move he made, I brought my gloves out and kept them low and pushed him to, he pushed me on my blocker side. I went with him. And I took everything away from him. He had nothing. He was waiting, had nothing, and then he tried to take it around the net. But, I took that shot opportunity away from him. It's not like he was getting pushed from behind, he was trying to get me to open up. I didn't. I stayed with him, pushed over my blocker side. He had nothing. Gave him nothing. Tried to curl around the backside of the net as I was, obviously down, and my trailing defenseman put an end to that. So he gets another breakaway. Similar move, and I'm waiting for it. I'm anticipating he's gonna do the same thing, but the kid cuts on a dime and goes to my glove side, and out of desperation, I'm like trying to adjust. I couldn't, so I'm essentially doing a pad stack, and I just throw my glove out like this as far as I can, and I felt the puck hit the webbing, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. He shot that into my glove. You gotta be fucking kidding me. Granted, it was luck. We always need a little bit of luck, but I reached as far over as I possibly could when I realized what was happening, and literally their entire team thought they scored. They all thought they scored. They went to center ice, and the refs kind of looking at it was like, puck's in his glove, guys. Like, hey, what are you guys doing? Like, face-off's down here, not center ice. So that was
best feeling in the world.
Yeah, and he actually came up to me in between periods like, bro, like, how the hell did you stop that? Like, I thought the puck went in the net. Like, I didn't even pick my head up. I thought it was in the net. And I'm like, nope, it's in my glove.
Desperation, never get up. Dominic Hasek taught us that.
No, man, it was a gnarly save for sure, but meant nothing because we lost. And I wouldn't say this normally about my boys, but it was a piss poor effort. That was for sure. Anyways, yes. So we go right back into it. That top line untouched. You keep it the same. And then obviously this is where things get a little bit more tougher. And as Matthew Fairburn, went into it with his second line projection, he projected Dylan Cousins centering both JJ Peterka and Casey Middlestat, which I'm fine with, but I thought he had even though he's very versatile, he can play all over he can play it on the wing or at center. I thought he was more successful down the middle. So we'll see if that is what ends up happening.
So I think this gets into the discussion of who replaces Jack Quinn, right? And I think it's a two-pronged discussion because that line normally is the kid line, and we would like to see them develop another year, and I think that's a pretty solid second line. Obviously, with Cousins centering JJ Peterka and Jack Quinn. They had some really, really strong moments together last year, but they also had a little bit of growing pains given that it was comprised of two rookies and a third-year player. So I think putting Middlestat on that line, I think, is a really good idea for a lot of reasons. Number one, Casey Middlestat had 17 points in his last 11 games.
Correct.
Both playing with Tage Thompson and Jeff Skinner on that top line. Obviously, he got more opportunity with better players. So you saw what he could do with the confidence he already created last season and also playing with better players. So you put him with a guy like Dylan Cousins. You put him with a guy like JJ Peterka, who is the fastest guy on the team, can create his own opportunities and opportunities for other people. And you continue to see what Casey Middlestat can do with better talent around him. I think up until this point in his career, he's been kind of stuck on that third and fourth line. And he's been playing with guys that he has been trying to feed with his playmaking skills, but haven't been able to put the puck in the net. So I think you put him in the best opportunity to succeed as you possibly can, given what you saw the production from him when you did that at the end of last season. I personally think that's a really, really good idea, and I hope they do that to begin the season.
I think he was one of the best players, or very best players at primary assists, 5-on-5.
Per 60.
Per 60. Yep.
He had 59 points in 82 games, and he's the only guy in the team that played all 82 games last season. Yep. So that says something about one of the biggest knocks on him, his durability, right? Like he was always seen as
mark with him.
Yeah, like he's always seen as like this smaller guy, and like you got to know over the summer he's working on getting stronger and faster, which are his two biggest knocks.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's questioning his playmaking ability, and he also put the puck in the net at a much higher rate than he did previously. So I think giving him the best line mates possible. Obviously, it's not going to happen with Skinner and Tuck, but yeah, I think it's a really good idea to put him with Cousins and Peterka to start the year.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you. I shouldn't say I couldn't agree with you more, because that leads me to my next question. Victor Olofsson. I know he projected him to play alongside Krebs, and I believe it was Greenway on the third line.
Yep.
But
I think this is what I was getting to with that two-pronged discussion of who replaces Jack Quinn.
Exactly. I'll let you.
That's what I'm saying. Like Victor Olofsson also replaces Jack Quinn. right? Because had Jack Quinn been healthy, he would have been on that second line, and then Middlestat would have played with Krebs and Jordan Greenway. So now that this opportunity has presented itself, right? Like, you have to figure that they tried to trade him and the market wasn't good enough, or the return that they wanted wasn't there, given like what his salary is or anything else related to that discussion. So now that you have him and you're kind of stuck with him, it seems like, I think you give him an opportunity on that third line and you see how the season starts. If you see the type of production that you did earlier in the season last year, where he was scoring at a relatively high rate and he was playing well, then his trade value has never been higher. Obviously, he's not projecting as a long-term piece in your organization right now, right? So
his 5-on-5 game, his 5-on-5 and defensive game would have to dramatically take a complete 180.
For sure. And I think he knows what he needs to improve on, but it just doesn't seem like he's that type of player. So you put him on that third line with two pretty good players in Krebs and Jordan Greenway. You put him on the second power play unit, and you see if he can continue to do what he does best, which is his one-timer from the right side of the hash there. Correct. And then if he gets you 15, 20 goals by the trade deadline, that's a pretty good trade piece for a playoff team or some team in the Western Conference that needs to add that type of guy to their roster. And by that point,
I think he had more goals than that at this past trade deadline.
Yeah, I'm sure he did, because there was a point in November to December where I think he had like a 25, 30 game scoreless drought. So yeah, I think you give him the opportunity, see what he can do. And if not, you either cut him or trade him.
I'm pulling up because, they'll give you, game by game stat. Now that I bring that up, I'm just curious, like, where was he? Trade deadline's in the beginning of November, I believe, correct?
Well, trade deadline for the NHL is beginning of March.
Sorry, not November. It is beginning of
March.
March, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize. I don't know why I thought November. Just curious. So in March, let me see. Started the season, and like I said, there was a point where he went on a complete tear. Season started. Why? Okay, here we go. So, beginning of March, we'll say the 6th of March is right around roughly where the trade deadline was. He's only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goals. So he finished the season with 28 goals. So if you were looking at a 23 to 25 goal scorer going into next year's trade deadline, that's a first-round pick for a desperate team.
Yeah, but I don't think they expect to get a first-round pick for Victor Olofsson. Especially given his contract, especially given, like, I think around the league, everybody knows what type of player he is. He's kind of a one-trick pony. So I really don't believe they're expecting that.
Like, I don't know, man. Paul Gaustad got a first-round pick, and that guy can score more than 15 goals.
I think all of us. I think even Rasmus Ristolainen getting a first-round pick was one of the biggest steals in NHL history. If we get a first-round pick for Victor Olofsson, that would be wild.
I don't think it'd be that wild.
I do, but that's only going to happen if he scores 25 goals. Which
teams always overpay at the deadline. They will always overpay.
It really depends on the need and the fit, right? Like if there's a team that like had a guy get injured, for instance, on their first power play unit, and they need a guy on the right hash, or they need a guy to fulfill that type of role, like maybe a specific type situation would be good for that. But like Victor Olofsson getting a first round pick, I think would be really, really crazy. Regardless, though, like that's best case scenario.
Yeah, it would be best case scenario, or
like
a premium player back in return.
Yeah, and for instance, like you ship him out, Jack Quinn comes in, that opens room for maybe Kulik down the stretch, maybe Matthew Savoy, who knows? I just think that like playing now that you've tried to get rid of him and you couldn't, and you have an open spot in your forward group, given that you didn't bring anyone in, I think giving him this opportunity, what's the worst thing that could happen? He's the same player you thought he was, and you trade him anyway, or you cut him. I think that giving him this opportunity on the third line or maybe even the second line, putting Mitts with Krebs and Greenway. I think giving him an opportunity to do what he does best, which is score goals, is not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. I just, for me personally, I just think that teams will always overpay at the deadline, especially for a guy who can put the puck in the net. And
for sure. But I think like that line of Greenway, Krebs, and Olofsson is a pretty well-rounded line. Like we've seen the type of game that Peyton Krebs plays now. He has a much more physical presence than he used to. You know what type of passer he is. Even Fairburn said in his article, he's probably the best passer on the team.
Yeah.
Jordan Greenway, another year in Donnie's system. He's 6'6". He's going to give you that physical game that you need on the third line, and he can also score some goals as well.
I would say you need more from Greenway because he didn't get a lot of physical play.
And I think that's why they traded for him, right? Because they didn't have that type of player on the roster yet. Yeah. So hopefully he enhances his physical game. So you've got a playmaker, you've got a physical presence, and then you've got a guy that's good at scoring goals. So those three together on your third line, obviously it's not the best third line in the league, but I don't think anyone expected our third line to be one of the best third lines in the league. Those three guys together potentially could find some chemistry. Like I honestly believe.
I hope so. You sound a little. I'm not as optimistic as you.
No, but like that's kind of what we have right now, right? Unless you start with Savoy or Kulik instead of Olofsson, but then you have $4.5 million on your bench.
I mean. I don't know. I just the team, the game is just so much built on speed. I'm not saying those guys are slow, but hands down, Peyton Krebs is the quickest guy on that line.
Yeah,
like, Olofsson isn't really much known for his speed, and Greenway again isn't. I'm not saying he's slow, but he's big, he's bulky.
I would say though, you make up the speed with the other three lines.
You'd hope so. You'd hope so.
Like that second line, aside from Middlestad, is one of the fastest lines in the league.
I just think that if that line is going to succeed, it's not going to be in transition. It's going to be getting pucks deep, winning battles, and getting pucks, into the danger areas in front of the net. That's where I think that team that line will be successful. It's not going to be built on speed. That is
no. But you saw how good Krebs was at that specific thing later in the year, like getting into the corner and making plays out front. Like Olofsson can park himself in the slot on that line for all we care. Greenway and Krebs can get down low, hopefully forecheck and win some puck battles and get it over to Olofsson, who hopefully can do what he does best at a high rate. So I really don't mind it. And then you get to the fourth line, which I think we all know what it's going to be given the deals that they signed this offseason. All one-year deals. They all bought in to come back for that specific role with Tyson Jost centering Kyle Okposo and Zemgus Girgensons. I think a lot of fans are kind of sick of seeing Girgensons and Okposo like in the exact same role on the team again. They've been there for so long. But when you look at the underlying numbers of what they do best, which is be responsible defensively, on a team that's not very responsible defensively, that type of role is needed from those guys.
And I've said this about Girgensons a couple times. I'm just like, I understand the frustration with Okposo. You kind of thought this might be his final year. I get why they bring him back. He's good in the room. I just can't imagine he is a full-time player this season. You can't expect that from him.
I mean, if he's healthy, and I mean, that's saying a lot given his concussion history and everything else. He's slow. He's objectively slow, but the defensive responsibility, especially in your own zone from your forward group, is a big deal. Like these guys, like, of course you want them to create more chances than they're giving up. Like, of course we don't want them to be hemmed in their own end the entire game, but they proved last season that they can get pucks deep, that they can grind out a forecheck, and they're kind of good at what they do. They're not going to give you 25, 30 goals, but they were responsible defensively last season.
Yeah, but
he's also saying a lot for a team that didn't have that.
He's also a year older now. I
mean, so is Girgensons, who's not necessarily the youngest guy of the group, but I think Tyson Jost also is a lot younger and he has some energy and he complements those two guys well. So, of course,
I would say you would hope that Jost fills in for what Krebs was on that line for so long.
For sure. And I mean, you saw some offensive upside from him last season too.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that, I mean, even Okposo talked about it. He even said, like, he wants to find more opportunities. He still has a good shot. Like he had a few goals. He had a few goals last season that I think took a lot of people by surprise, but like he still has offensive talent. He's just as slow as molasses. So I think, of course, like it'll be pretty apparent in the first 2 months if he doesn't have it, right? And if he doesn't have it, you have a guy like Yuri Kulik you can bring up. You have a guy like Lucas Rusek or maybe even Savoy before he goes to the World Juniors. I think you kind of play it by ear and you have options, but at least starting that with your dependable fourth line is not the worst thing in the world.
No, there were a more than a handful of times last season. I watched just about every game. I'd say out of 82 games, whether I was there live or at home watching it, I watched probably 80 out of 82 games. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whether it was at 7 o'clock in the morning on replay, you know, from an 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock start, whatever it was the night before. Like I watched pretty much every game. And there was more than a handful of times where Kyle would have 3 or 4 steps on the guy on a back check and he would get beat to the puck every time. Or, you know, in a race for the puck in the offensive zone and he would get beat to the puck every time. That's what worries me with him. Being a year older, I'm not taking away from what he can do offensively. He's a big body. He plays physical. He stands up for his teammates. He's everything you want a captain. And I don't take away from that at all. I'm just here playing devil's advocate. Like that is invaluable on any team. But I just don't see him playing, even if he stays healthy, an 82-game season this year.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't either, to be honest, given his age. And
it's not a bad thing to have him on a pitch count. But
No, absolutely. I mean, load management or what have you, like, I think that line, everyone always said, like, if we lost Girgensons, like, imagine him on a playoff team, on a fourth line for a Bruins or the Avalanche or, like, any of these teams we expect to be there at the end, or even the Golden Knights. Like, he's the type of player that does well in the playoffs.
Yep.
And these are even Tyson Jost, like, these are the guys we're going to need. Even Jordan Greenway, like, that physical presence that the first couple lines don't really have.
And it was even said, reported that Girgensons had offers from other teams for multiple years, and he chose Buffalo. And that says a lot about his character and what this team
he got drafted by the team. He's been there forever, and he wants to see this team get to the playoffs.
And here's another thing too, is to your point before, if you don't bring back Girgensons, you're either A, filling that slot in with a rookie, you know, much like you did with, you know, Krebs the previous year and a half, or you go find another guy much like Girgensons, who's one of the best. And there's no arguing it. Yes, he does not put the puck in the net, but there's zero arguing it. He is one of the best defensive forwards in the National Hockey League.
Good penalty killer, defensively responsible. He's a guy that the Sabres need right now. And we can get into the defense later, but he supports the defense. They are somewhat reliable against another team's top line. They start the game pretty often because I don't know how good Tyson Jost is at draws. I think we talked about last season, faceoffs were absolutely horrible. But the combination of these 4 guys, you would have to hope that their percentages are going to be a little bit better. Like Tage Thompson, I think, is coming into his center, aside from all of the other things he does. You got to think he's going to start to be better at draws, given his hand-eye coordination and his skill level. They're going to practice this.
And hopefully
Dylan Cousins is a tough guy, and he's pretty good at it. Like Peyton Krebs, obviously he's not the most experienced centerman, but like you got to think all 4 of these guys know that they were not the best last season, and they're going to improve. So I don't know. I think a lot of the defensive responsibility starts there, and then you move out. But I think overall it's going to be better than it was last season.
Yeah. So, you know, and you're like, you know, going back to Girgensons, like you said, you're gonna replace Girgensons with a guy like Girgensons. If he scores 20 goals a season, he's in the conversation for the Selke every year.
Absolutely.
This. You know, he's not Patrice Bergeron, but he's in that conversation every single year.
Unfortunately, he does not score 20 goals a season. But he'll get you 9 or 10 maybe. Yeah. And that's fine. I expect Oposo to potentially get 15, Jost to get 15. I expect hopefully 30 points from each guy, and that's all you can ask for from the fourth line offensively.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
now, going back to that second, third line we spoke of, Dylan Cousins has had a lot of experience growing up playing already with Peyton Krebs. I personally think there is honestly an opportunity there where he would maybe get an opportunity up there on the second line.
I mean, you theoretically could switch Krebs and Middlestat and put Middlestat in between Greenway and Olofsson, but I think that kind of takes away from Middlestat's ceiling a little bit. I think the ceiling is higher for Middlestat playing with better players than it would be for Krebs.
I agree with you, but he also played well in third line roles last season.
Yeah, for sure. And like he's a pretty good centerman, and he would be a good playmaker for Olofsson and Greenway, obviously. But I think that's a good discussion to have, right? Because like Krebs is a very capable center, so is Middlestat, and you could interchange both guys if you really need to. You know how much Donnie moves around to his lines. Like if either line isn't working, I think those 6 guys are like at least slightly interchangeable. And let's say the first line is humming along, and those other 2 lines aren't doing that well. You could make changes within those 3 lines to switch up the chemistry and try something new, or even bring in a guy like Rusek or a guy like Savoy or Kulik to bring in a boost of energy. The best thing possible is that there are options, and there are way more options than a forward group for the Sabres have had in a very long time. Good options, like got options that have already played in the league, not guys that you're just like throwing a dart at the wall. Like you've guys that you can like honestly rely on in a lot of different situations.
Yeah. One last question before we get into the defense too. And I guess like if you're going to try and compare it, the Bills season's right around the corner, get ready for training camp. I've had fun talking about the forward groups and the possibilities, but I think this team offensively is going to be a lot more exciting 2 or 3 years from now, maybe even the following year, when these young players that we have are ready to make the jump to pro, when you have Cully and Savoy here, and maybe even Benson. What scares me about this being the lineup that we go into next season with is we saw how much injuries hurt us last year when they did happen. When Tage Thompson was not the same player post All-Star break because he hurt I think it was his back. I want to say it was his back, or was it his back?
Yeah, it was his back.
A back injury going into the All-Star break. And then there was another small thing that was lingering with him even after the fact. Darlene's injury. What scares the shit out of me, and you could say this about the Bills last season when they lost Von Miller, how dramatically it can change a team, is what if you lose one of your 2 big dogs in Tage or Darlene? We saw what happened with this team with Eichel when he got hurt in practice. He didn't even play the game yet. He got, tied up with Gergensons during a drill, and it was an ankle sprain. And he was out, and people say that might have been the reason why Tim Murray lost his job, because of all the expectations of that season, and he did nothing to address it to start the year. Is this team a Tage or Darlene injury away from complete disaster?
I mean, I think you could say that for almost any team in the league. Like, if you lose your 1 or 2 best players, like, I don't think any team or any organization is prepared for that. You never want that to happen. If the Bills lost Josh Allen, the season is over.
Yeah, season's over.
If the Bills – I think the good part about the Sabres is that – the good part about hockey is that if the Sabres lost Tage Thompson, Dylan Cousins is your number 1 center. You put Mitz as your number 2, Krebs as your number 3, and then you fill in the roster with more depth than you've had in a long time. Like, you have these prospects, you have the AHL, you have these guys that can slot in. Dylan Cousins could be a number 1 center for a lot of teams in the NHL. Like, that's where his projection is. And the fact that the Sabres have 2 potentially number 1 centers for the next 7 to 10 years is a luxury. So I think Tage, of course, that would be horrible, but Dylan Cousins can slot into that role and you'd be fine.
Yeah.
Rasmus Dahlin gets hurt. Obviously horrible. But Owen Power is a potentially number 1 star defenseman. You slot him in, and now you also have 10 NHL defensemen under contract. Obviously, they're not going to go into the season like that because you can't have that. A trade is going to happen, and who knows what that trade is going to be for. Hopefully, maybe they bring in more forward depth, maybe another goalie. We'll see. But I think the cool part about it is that, especially with your top two players, obviously Tage and Dahlin, you have younger guys right below them that could slot into those roles. Like, the season is not over if Tage Thompson goes down for 2 months. The season's not over if Rasmus Dahlin goes down for 2 or 3 months. Of course, it's horrible, and you don't want that to happen. But I think there is enough depth there, and there is enough skill up and down the roster that hasn't been there for a long time. So to answer your question, no, it's not doom and gloom. It's not as doom and gloom as a Josh Allen or Stephon Diggs injury would be.
Okay. You answered my question. I think that you just don't replace what Tage Thompson does with Dylan Cousins.
You don't, but it's not as bad as it would have been in the past.
Okay. Yeah, it worries me because, granted, yes, offensively, we were one of the better teams in the league last year. Obviously, defensively, it's a different story. But I think so much was generated from that top line, and those three pieces just work so well together that if the biggest piece of those three goes down, can Dylan Cousins carry that weight? And, because he's a much different player than Tage Thompson. He just is. Yep. Tage Thompson has, hands gifted with unbelievable hands, an unbelievable shot, whereas Dylan had the ability to score a highlight goal here or there, but he really gets into those dirty areas of the game, and that's how he honestly scores a lot of from below the face-off dots, gets into those areas that not many players.
He also had a lot of highlight reel goals himself.
He did. Oh, he did.
I think that goal against, I forget, it was, I think maybe the Senators, where he was on 2-on-1, and a forward was on D, and he toe drags around the guy and goes top shelf. The overtime goal against the Islanders, where he bats it out of midair on a breakaway and scores on Sorokin. Like, the dude is only going to get better. Like, he had 68 points, I think. Yeah, 68 points in his third full season in the league. And you can just tell he's, like, we call him the workhorse from Whitehorse. He's only going to get stronger.
Yep.
And I honestly believe he's going to develop into a 1B center in the National Hockey League. He might already even be that.
Yeah, I put him around probably 35 to 40 goals next season, but I guess I wasn't trying to take away from saying he's not a skilled player. But when you compare him to Tage,
it's just a different type of player.
They're just two way different types of players.
Yeah, but I think he's a point per game guy.
Yeah, so fashionably late. Actually, he's not even there right now.
No, I'm here. I didn't know if you had me. I was going to get my phone.
Yeah, no. Fashionably late as ever. Johnny Cullen will join the show.
It was a very important phone call, if that makes it any better, like potential job and implications down the road.
No, it's fine. It's fine, bud. It's fine.
It's a career advancement phone call, Duane.
Hey,
there we go.
It's all good, Kelly. We're just getting into the defense here.
Boy, you guys, I was cleaning out. I had to shampoo the carpets, and look at this beauty I found. We made this then when I coached that Thunder Junior A team for the player of the game. What do you give it? You know how across the league they do like jackets, pilot jackets, whatever. What do you give this? Out of 10.
Out of 10?
That's got to be a 9.
Player of the game helmet.
8 or 9.
Hey, I get an 8 for sure. An 8.
No, thank you. Continue.
8. No, we were just getting into our forward. We off of Matthew Fairburn's latest article from The Athletic, kind of line roster projections for the season for the Sabres. We just got done with the forward groups. We're getting into the defensive groups now.
I think that's where it's a lot of intrigue, right, with the new pieces.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess I wonder, in terms of the lines we went through and what we at least sort of agreed on, if you have any disagreements, I'm just going to read out the 4 lines and see if you think anything different. So obviously, first line, Tage centering Skinner and Tuck. Second line, given that Jack Quinn is down, Cousins centering Peterka and Middlestat. I think Middlestat potentially deserves that opportunity. Third line, Krebs centering Greenway, and now that he's still there, Victor Olofsson. Fourth line, Tyson Joe centering Gergensons and Okposo. Do you have anything to add?
Who's our 13th forward?
13th forward would probably be Rusek.
I like that.
And even to start the year, Savoy.
And depending on camp, yeah, it's always good to have surprises. Here's my dark horse. I like that. And Duane, I mentioned this to you before. What about Kulik? Like, I'm really high on him, guys. I think he replaces Olofsson in a way that's more physical and a better all-around game.
Well, he would have to beat him out in training camp, right?
I mean, you've heard the whispers, right? Like,
yeah, and I think that's a discussion you have in late September. Like, if he proves in training camp and the preseason that he's a better version of Olofsson, then you either waive Victor Olofsson or you do whatever you can to trade him, because you don't want $4.5 million sitting on your bench.
Is he on our trade block right now, Duane?
Yeah. I mean, he's
100% phone calls on him.
I think
the draft.
I think there were offers on the table at the draft, or even before the start of free agency.
I agree. I heard the same thing.
Kevin Adams had a value for him that he wasn't going to budge from, and he didn't budge from it.
I just, like I said, I'm interested for training camp. You know what I mean? I'm going to go to this prospects camp if my schedule allows. That will be sweet. That just got announced today, right?
Yep, the prospect showcase is returning to Buffalo.
Maybe we can get a little live show down there after. You know what I mean? That'd be fun as hell.
Yeah.
All right, so did a defense. Sorry about that.
Nope.
No. In the middle of the show, I'll call you back. Love you. Hockey dad, dude. I've been playing phone tag with him all day. Continue. What's the defense looking like?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious what that first pairing is, right? It's obviously Dahlin and Samuelsson. I don't think you mess with that, right?
Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fucking fix it, right?
Yep. And Samuelsson, I think it proved how valuable he is in a team when he's in the lineup. You saw their record when he wasn't in the lineup, and how lopsided it was.
Number, dude.
Yeah,
he's the perfect complement to Rasmus Dahlin.
Yeah,
and it makes it even better that they were taken in the same draft, different types of players. Samuelsson seems like he is the absolute best guy in the locker room. I don't know if you've seen. Everybody loves him. Everyone clips it.
Heard a bad word about him.
Like his dry humor is like unbelievable. The dude is the most responsible defensive defenseman that we've had in a long time. That he's physical. He's as good of a stronghold as you could possibly want. And then that second line, I think, is pretty clear cut too. The second pairing in Owen Power and Connor Clifton.
Yeah, I don't see, barring injury, I don't see Eric Johnson sliding into that second. I think that.
No, he's a 5'6", 5'7", man. I love him, but I just think Duane, with where he's at with his legs, what do you think?
He's a 5'6" guy for sure.
I think he's a bubble 6. But
what if he comes out and has a great camp? Duane could be right. Maybe he just has that click with Power. You know what I mean? That could happen.
I don't think there's any reason he should not be on your third pairing this season.
Oh yeah, I have him in the lineup. I would just
there's no way he falls out of it unless his game completely takes a big nosedive. We know what we have in Yoki Haru. You know what you have in Babushkin, even though he played a lot injured, I believe, last year. Stillman, he had some bright spots. The guy's obviously not afraid to, stand up for his teammates, fight.
That's a good seventh defenseman to have.
Yeah. So for me, it's Eric Johnson and who?
I mean, it really comes down to who is the better camp, right? Yoki Haru or Labushkin.
Somebody's getting traded. Somebody's getting traded. There's no you're carrying this many.
I mean, Fairburn brought it up. Like, the guy with the highest trade value is without a doubt Yoki Haru.
Yes, I agree.
I don't think Yoki Haru is going anywhere. You guys really think Labushkin and Jack Johnson can play together?
Jack Johnson?
Yeah, sorry. I'm so sorry.
I do. I would say that's not a bad third pairing. Like,
I'm just saying. I think
we saw what Labushkin can do, right? He's a very physical presence. He has a pretty good shot from the point.
Yep.
He does have like a little bit of offensive upside when he really wanted to. And
he's going to play, it's good.
Yeah, and Eric Johnson is that responsible, stay-at-home defenseman that you want. He's been in the league for 15 years. He's won a cup. He was a former number 1 overall pick. He can mentor Dahlin and Power in a way that like not a lot of other guys could. I think having him in the room and pairing him.
What's his upside, Duane?
Yoki Haru, he's not a guy. I mean, he can carry the puck out of the zone, but he's not. That's not the guy you want carrying the puck out of the zone.
I mean, he's a good puck mover. He's a good puck mover,
he
right?
can move
Like,
the puck.
yeah.
But
What do
he's
you
not
want out of your
physical.
5'6"? Sorry, go ahead, Duane.
He's not physical, so you can't really expect that from him. And what bugs me about Henry is I see a little Rasmus Ristolainen in it when it comes to his decision making.
Or his awareness in front of the net.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
like
what about Lyubushkin? Don't you see a little bit there too? Sometimes he has some fuck ups. He jumps into play when he shouldn't. They both have that in their game.
No,
I think there's more. There's more to be desired right now from Lyubushkin because we didn't actually get a full season from him, a healthy season.
What was the injury, Duane? I'm sorry, I'm ignorant on that.
he blocked a lot of shots.
I know he did. I wasn't ever aware of what.
I mean,
after
he had
the season. Did they name what it was?
He had an ankle. He had a hand.
Yeah,
he had a leg injury. He had a lot of stuff.
He was banged up.
I knew he was banged up, but that's fucking real banged up. Yeah, that's like a double all-nighter at Vegas banged up. You know what I mean?
He had 3 different injuries last season.
Damn. Yeah. But you're right. That brings up a good point. I mean, what does a healthy Lyubushkin look like, and how does that last pair fill out? I think too, like what if what's it called? What if Clifton comes in as just all world? And I don't know. I think Donnie's good. And the assistant coaches that are handling the back end have done a good job. I just wonder, the way you guys talked about it was great. Who, like Darlene Samuelson, like who is that for Owen Power? And I think organizationally, you have to think about satisfying like the Darlenes, the Powers of your organization, right?
I mean, it's got to be Clifton, given what you paid for him.
Yeah, I think it's Clifton.
No doubt about it.
I mean, if it's not Clifton, it's Eric Johnson. But I think the clear-cut choice between those two, it's Connor Clifton.
Yeah. Logic.
He hits everything that moves. He plays an honest game defensively. He's not gonna wow you offensively. But last season he was a 20-point scorer. I
liked him in Boston
as a third pairing defenseman.
He was really solid.
A third pairing defenseman who didn't get any power play time. He had 20 points. So
he was good on their kill though too, Duane.
Yes.
Like I remember him getting. He did. You're right. He didn't get special team times up power play, but he killed a lot and he was great.
So I would expect playing with a much bigger talent in Owen Power, given more opportunity, more ice time. I wouldn't be surprised to see that number jump up 10, 15 points. I mean,
he's definitely going to time on ice is going to go up this year.
Huh?
His average time on ice is going to go up like a minute this year.
I'm not saying he's going to get power play time. He probably won't. You know,
like 60, jumping from 12, 13 to 16 is a jump. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a huge jump every night for sure.
And look, I mean, like these guys, like they're not going to be perfect. Like it's not the best defensive unit in the league, but like all you can ask for is better than last year, and that gets into the discussion of like over under 250 goals against. Like last year, they gave up.
The goaltender's a big part of that. I think that our decor has been. Our goalies haven't helped our decor, and vice versa. But I think the numbers are skewed when you look at it that way. Because
I mean,
if your goalie can bail you out, like look at Aiden Hill in the finals. He made those saves early in the game. And then, like, he didn't really get tested too much, and it allowed Vegas to get up. You know what I mean? That's a bad example to bring up. You guys get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. But like, they gave up 300 goals last season.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
They scored 296 goals for, but 300 against.
And they were the third. Like you said, they were the third highest scoring team in the league, and they were still a -4.
Yeah, so you're a -4, and you have 296. Something's not right.
Yeah, and leading to my next question too is, and I put it in the title of the episode, over under 250 goals against for the Buffalo Sabres.
I mean, I think anywhere from 250 to 275 is fine.
Can I ask a caveat to that question? Like if Devin Levi plays close to 50 games, I'd say under.
Yeah, I would say under too.
I would say under as well.
And you'd hope that the defense supports him in the way that you need him to, right? Like they would even be way more responsible than they already would have been, given that it's a rookie goaltender.
Yeah. Well, not quite a rookie. You got to remember, like he gets those couple games last year, but just to be in the room, right?
For sure. Like that, I think that those 7 games were invaluable.
Him and know, like, oh fuck, dude, this kid's a stud. And to have, like, we know him personally, and he's the type of kid that's not gonna not work. He's one that's gonna only make himself better and make everybody else better. I think we have a bright spot, and nothing against UPL, but you got to remember, right after his best year, he won goalie of the year in the OHL. He had double hip surgery. Devin is healthy, knock on wood. I think he makes this an under. I'm taking the under all day, Duane.
Yeah, and here's another thing with me too is, we've talked about in our chat. Like I said, I am not a UPL stan, but I think given that the expectation is defensively and 5-on-5, you're going to be better. The role UPL will be playing will be more consistent. I assume. I mean, we don't know what's going to go on with Comrie, but assuming that Levi and UPL, it's their jobs to lose, going into camp, there's going to be more confidence there for Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. And I think up here is his biggest issue. I don't think it was really much health last year. Up here was his biggest issue.
Yeah, you saw moments of him being himself again physically. I'll give you that. But it wasn't consistent enough, and that goes back to what you said. It's up here. Good point.
We were talking to Drury the other day, and Drury said flat out, he goes, the guy who calls for the Guelph Storm, he goes, every single week there was a new highlight reel save, top 5 saves, and UPL was always near the top. The guy was just
days in Sudbury?
Back when he was in the
Sudbury.
Yes.
He dominated that league. And trust me, that is not a goalie-friendly league. Just watch any of my former games, and I got lit up. Like, he was so good. But Duane, that even proves my point, dude. That double labrum surgery is a death sentence for goalies. I hate to say this. I had a kid. He obviously wasn't going to go pro, but he had already had D3 talks at 19, 18. Like, maybe would have went like low end D1, like Atlantic Division. But he had double hip surgery at 19. Career over, Duane. Done.
Yeah, it's not something you come back for. Your hips are so crucial, and we have 3 goalies in this chat. We all know.
I'm just wondering, given that it happened when he was so young, if that was the best possible scenario for that type of surgery, right?
I don't think there's any best possible.
No. But like, given that it did happen when he was as young as he was, like, the Sabres doctors clearly wouldn't let him play if he wasn't like physically able to do so.
But you got to remember, at that point, you're almost trying to keep his medicals a secret in case he is a trade bait down the line. You know what I mean? Like, you're not keeping him secret. People are going to know his health, but it's not like you're shopping that information around. I don't know. He's already your property at that point from a general manager point of view. Like, you just don't know with injuries. Sometimes guys, it doesn't slow them down. Sometimes.
So, I mean, the thing with him, though, like, at least positionally, like, I thought he moved well last season. Like, with a double hip surgery, I guess the biggest thing would be, like, moving across your net, like, getting side to side. Like, we see how good Levi is at that. I think UPL's strength last season was some of the highlight reel saves he made. I think he got beat far too often with, like, actual shots from the slot or coming down the wing or rebounds or anything like that. I thought when you look at him as a goalie, like, he moves pretty well, especially for a guy who had double hip surgery less than 2 years ago.
Yeah, I just think Duane hit the nail on the head. Like, you got to have that every night. And if you don't, like, he's not an NHL goalie. You know what I mean? I hate to say it. Can he regain that form? I don't know.
Well, like, I guess the good thing.
I'm not a UPL guy. I think it's Devin's crease. I think that's.
No, I don't think anybody's arguing that. It's Devin's net. But I think UPL will thrive more given he'll know his role going into the season.
Did you have a mouth fart just now? Duane, did you just fart out of your mouth?
No, I just had a tickle in my throat.
What did you say?
I think he knows his role going into the season. You know, there was 4 goalies essentially in the rotation last year once Devin came into the picture. You know, Devin being given the wheel at the end of that year with playoffs on the line. I mean, how do you question whether or not he's the starting goalie? He's not. He is. Devin's the starting goalie.
Sorry.
You're driving me nuts right now.
No, dude, it's back up. It almost fell out of me. That's what I get for moving my chair.
But anyways, so I think Devin gets no less than 50 starts next season.
You're stealing my number. Hey, let's play this one. What's over under? Like, what's your number of starts that he gets? I'm going 56.
I'm gonna go 54.
I personally say under, but that's just me thinking that they're going to be a little bit more conservative than we hope they are with him. I think he performs well. He continues to improve, but I think they're at least hoping for more from UPL, number one. And number two, if it's not him, that they trade for a guy either this summer or before the deadline to give Levi a tiny bit more support than another guy that hasn't been that reliable so far. Like, I think a lot of fans are worried.
But I would bet the house on that they do not make a fucking move. It's Levi's crease until we see what happens.
I just think that's a bit. I don't think it's confident.
Anybody. I think the people that talk about adding Hellebuck.
You guys need to stop talking over each other. You gotta let them talk.
I just think that, like, as confident as we are in Devin Levi, that's a slippery slope. Like, relying on a guy who we all are very unsure about, given his injury history and his lack of consistency since he's been in the NHL as his primary backup, I think is a very slippery slope going into a season where it's playoffs or bust.
I don't disagree, but I guess I'm in the minority that I feel comfortable with those two as your goalies next year. I just do.
Yeah,
I just do.
Those are two solid.
I'm slightly less than comfortable. Slightly.
I think that, knowing what we know about Devin, Cully mentioned earlier, personally, we know him, all the stuff you hear about him, it's true, like off the ice.
He's the guy ever.
He is a maniac about his diet. He is a maniac about stretching, like everything about him, how he takes care of his body.
Duane.
Like literally, man, he treats the way, he doesn't put garbage in his body. He's constantly training. I think he's built to be a guy that, and here's the other thing. If they didn't have that type of confidence in them from day one, they wouldn't have ridden him when the season meant the most.
No, for sure.
That many games in a row. So I see that, given that he has that experience now and going into this season with a much better expected team in front of him, at least defensively, I put him at no less than 50 starts. That's how I feel. I think that's your horse. You're going to ride your horse. This might not be the old days of the NHL where you got Marty Brodeur starting 70-something games a year. But at his age, his type of confidence, you saw it after that Rangers game the Rangers, where, he let in 6 and he was all smiles afterwards. Like, what I mean? Like, you got to face adversity every once in a while. He's not the type of kid that's going to let a bad goal or a bad game get the better of him. He's going to come out, short memory, next game, ready to go, 0-0. Let's get after it.
I just think it's worth having the discussion, given that we know that UPL is not the goalie of the future. Like, we're all very confident that Devin Levi is the goalie of the Sabres future for hopefully the next 10 to 15 years. Yeah. So UPL potentially still has some upside, and you have 10 NHL defensemen or 10 defensemen who played in the NHL last season. Why not potentially use those assets that you're not going to use for the future to potentially bring a guy in to back him up that you're more confident in?
Who?
I
Give
say
me a name, and then I'll have the hypothetical with you.
John Gibson.
Yeah, I'd take Gibson for 100%. Give him UPL and a 5th. But I think he's going to cost a lot fucking more than that.
How about UPL, Yoki Haru, a 5th, and they send a prospect back?
Fine, done. Take it.
I think 75% of Sabres fans, maybe even more.
Listen, but
if you
do
that,
how you bring in a guy and how UPL was brought in, I think you gotta give Levi a chance first, though.
No, but I'm not bringing in John Gibson to be the starter. I'm bringing in John Gibson to maybe go Levi 45 and Gibson 40, 35. You know what I mean?
Yeah, however it would work out. I think it'd be an interesting crease battle. Listen, as a GM,
that's going to motivate Levi.
Adams will agree. If he can make his team better, he will. I would love to have John Gibson. Are you kidding me? I think that with Devin's the type of kid that you know, he might it might bug him, but it's only going to make him work harder, like Duane said.
Do you
The
really
kid is a pro's pro, and I believe in him. I really do.
Do you think that would bug him?
Bringing in John Gibson?
Yeah, fuck yeah. But I don't think he would be public about it. I think he would internalize it into working harder. Honestly.
I don't think that bugs him one bit. I think he uses that as motivation.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
But like not in a bad way though. Like
yeah,
I think
it doesn't have to be bad. It's like, hey, you're going to bring another guy. I'm going to be better than you. Doesn't matter who you bring in.
It's internal competition. The kid's been dealing with it his entire career.
And also, it's a mentor. Like John Gibson was one of the best young goalie prospects to come into the league in a long time.
Hey, I played against him for 3 years. I know he was a year younger than me, and he came right from the U.S. development program. Played these 3 years in Kitchener, and my last 2 years I was in his conference. He talk about a guy that tore the OHL up, but he was nasty. He's good. And how much gas does he have left, guys?
I think it's the best possible scenario. I really do.
I'm honestly surprised he's still in Anaheim. I can't believe
he's already said he's not going to play for Anaheim.
Huh?
He already said he's not going to play for
Anaheim.
Anaheim.
No, that's actually.
I thought it happened already, though. You're right.
No, that's actually allegedly a lie. Frank Saravelli reported that John Gibson said that he will never play another game for Anaheim. John Gibson and his agent came out that same day and said, we never said those things ever at all. It's literally directly from him and his agent. I'm sure you'll probably find it on Twitter. It was literally like right after Saravelli said that.
But you got to think that he's fed up, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, who wouldn't be? Like,
but he's been on one of the worst defensive teams for a long time.
They did get better. They did get a little better in the offseason. They did go get Racco Gudas, which, I mean, you can't deny that's going to help your team defensively. Makes you a lot tougher, that's for sure.
But that team,
I wanted Racco for us, guys. I'm not going to lie. I really did.
Yeah.
I'm not upset about Clifton. I wanted Racco Gudas in the worst way.
Yeah.
Would have been great.
I just think that like a European defenseman like that with the group that we have that's as tough as he is, he would have been great for our guys.
I agree.
I think what we got is pretty good. I don't know. I just think that it's a missed opportunity if they don't use their assets to improve the room, right? Like, I think we all know
your hypothetical was a light hypothetical. I think Anaheim's going to hold out for something better.
I don't think they're going to get a better deal than that.
Wait, would you take that trade? UPL and a fifth
and Yoki Haru
for what else? What was the deal you said?
It was UPL, Yoki Haru, and a fifth for Gibson, and maybe a sixth from Anaheim.
How much money is Gibson making right now?
I'll look it up, but I can't be more than 6.
I think Anaheim takes that if Buffalo retains the entire salary. You know what I mean? Like
they have the room.
Huh?
They have the room to do that.
Yeah. You'd have to take on his entire salary.
He's making 6.4.
And for how much longer?
Let's see. 6.4. John Gibson's
until 26, 27.
There's no fucking way I'm paying him till.
And he's got a modified no trade clause.
No way am I paying John Gibson $6.4 million a year.
Yeah, dude.
No way. Nope. I pass.
I stand where I did before, man. It's definitely my
if Anaheim retained. Sure, we'll talk that.
Duane, would you take it if they retained half some way, somehow?
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
100%. There's no way I'm paying him $6.5 million.
Well, I think they're in a rebuilding position that they absolutely would do that.
Who, Anaheim?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. If they're willing to retain half that salary, yeah, I'm all over that for sure. But I'm not paying John Gibson $6.5 million a year.
So that's a discussion.
No way.
That's a discussion you have though, because you're getting a young goalie prospect who potentially could be good down the line to pair with Stolar, who they currently have.
Not a fucking. I think he's at the point now where what's UPL ceiling? Maybe he could be a good. I don't know. I think that ship sailed. Him being a true 1A. Don't you guys?
Yeah, I agree, and that's why it's like maybe you try to get something for him.
Yeah, I just think we'd have to probably add something to that. Yoki Haru in there.
Yeah, but even if it's not Yoki Haru, maybe it's like one of your other prospects. Maybe it's Rosine, and you get a prospect back from the Ducks. I'm just saying, like, using the surplus that the Sabres haven't had in a long time to potentially improve your goalie room in a season where it's playoff or bust should be a priority.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense, though. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm confident. I'm confident in Levi.
I'm confident in Levi, but I'm not confident in
Levi.
EPO. So I think you do whatever you can to improve that backup spot.
So I have him at 54 games. Johnny, you said 56. And
I say closer to like 48.
48. Okay. Well, it's kind of all over the board there. I asked over under 50. 2 for over, 1 for under. Asked earlier, goals against 250 or over under 250. Everybody agreed under 250. I think that would be the expectation with better goaltending and better defensive, /5 on 5 / penalty killing.
Team D, right?
Yeah, I think that's the big. That also is the big thing. Penalty killing. It has to get better. You have to be able to kill penalties.
Hey, you know what? The best way to be a better PK team? Take less penalties.
Exactly.
Also win more faceoffs.
Yes, win faceoffs, that helps too.
Just Ryan O'Reilly.
Goals for 296. Can Buffalo keep up with that pace this coming season?
I personally say under.
I think 275, and I still think they'll do well. I just think
I think there is a bit of regression coming from the goal scorer.
How about this, Hurls? What if they have the breakout season we've been hoping for? Then I don't think it's like out of the realm of possibility. But yeah, I say under. I'm too.
I would say
I'll put the number at 265. 265.
Over. I'll take over that.
Over 265, but under 296.
Yeah, I'm with that.
I agree with that.
And I think they'll be happy. Let's say they get 270 and they allow 245. You're still a plus 35 team.
Tage Thompson over under 95 points.
Over.
What was his total this year?
I think he had 90. He had 92 this year, and he was hurt.
92 and what? 72 games, something like that.
He missed I don't think he missed 10 games.
No, I think he had 79 games.
Okay,
yeah,
so
but he was hurt. He was hurt.
I say over 100.
I say over. I say he hits the 100. I say he gets 100 points for the Sabres player will get 100 points this season for the first time since LaFontaine and Mogilny both did it.
He had 94 in 78 games.
I got Jeff Skinner over 65 points.
Middlestat?
No, Jeff Skinner.
Jeff Skinner. Yeah, I mean, I think so too. He was almost a point per game player last year. You get 82 games from a healthy Tage Thompson, he's easily hitting 105.
Yep. I think, dude, he was in the MVP. Like, he was in the MVP talks last year. Obviously we know who ran away with it pretty early. It was McDavid. But I think MVP is the most valuable player to your team, not the league, to their team. And if this team finally breaks the playoff drought and Tage Thompson goes out there and has a 110-point season, how do you deny that he is not the MVP?
For sure. And I don't think it's unreasonable to expect 90 from Tuck and 82 from Skinner.
Would you say 35 goals over under for Alex Tuck?
I would say right around 35, maybe probably over. If this line continues to develop their chemistry and stay together and work, and obviously those three guys are on the power play unit too, I think a 35 and 50 season from Tuck is reasonable to expect.
Hell yeah.
Over under 50 points, Owen Power.
Oof. I'd say under, but
I got over. I got him at 54 this year.
Oh.
I think he goes over. I think that he wasn't really let off his offensive leash last season. I think that not having the consistency in a D partner every single game hurt him.
Yeah, I mean 35 and 79 games, like that's pretty good for a rookie season. So
that's why I think ain't no stretch to bump that.
And he also gained he had 4 goals, but I think he had two goals in 2 games, and he started to develop his scoring touch towards the end of the season. So yeah, no, it's not out of the question. It's definitely not. I think Dahlin easily could get 90.
Yep, I think I put Dahlin. I would say over under 85. I would go over.
I would too.
I think Dahlin's an all-star again next year, so I think I got to have him over that.
Over 85. Yep.
I think the way that this team values his offensive upside. Him on the power play with Tage and Tuck, Skinner. Yeah, I think he could theoretically get 100.
JJ Paterka, over under 45.
Over.
I put him over as well. I was going 50 there.
As long as he gets the right usage.
You saw how good he was at the World Championships.
His
name is developing more and more.
Yeah. I thought that was a low number, but I thought it was a modest number, 45.
No, I bet you, dude, if you went on the betting line, I think it'd be right around there.
Yep.
And
I
think he could get 60.
I agree. Especially, well, I don't know about 60.
The right line,
that chemistry with Jack Quinn won't be there in the beginning of the season. They play well together.
I think Mitz is the perfect replacement. I really do.
Interesting one. What do you have for Mitz's over
under 65 for Casey Middlestat.
I think if he stays with that line, or he gets more power play time, or even more opportunities with Tage and Tuck or Skinner, I think it's very reasonable to expect his ascent continues and he gets over 65.
So he had 59 points last season, correct?
17 in the last 11 games.
I'm looking it up right now because I want to know what his output was.
Well, he had 59 and 82. I wrote this down right before we got on here.
Yep, 59. Yeah. The show 59 points,
goals, 44.
I put him over 65. I personally put him over 65. He's going to play a lot if he is indeed on that second line.
He played all last year. That's good.
Yeah, he's the only one to do it.
Yep. So I definitely put him at over 65. I think he's going to get a decent amount of power play time, probably on that second unit. I think you roll out your first unit on that first round with obviously Duane at the point with probably another forward, I'd imagine, right? I don't know if it would be Casey. It would probably be.
Think about this. Middlestat had 135 shots.
Yeah.
And he also had 16 power play points. I think those are huge indicators that those are all career highs, big jumps and everything, especially with the shortened season the year before. I think you guys are right. I think it's over, man.
I mean, your power play one is Duane at quarterback, Tage on the left, Skinner on the right, and then Tuck and Cousins down low, right?
Correct.
So
I don't know what our setup's going to be. I'm not going to pretend to know.
But that's what they did do when they were healthiest last season.
I think
so. You put your five best players on the ice, and that power play was the best, one of the better in the power plays in the league when they were healthiest. So then on power play 2, you put Power at quarterback, Olofsson on the right. Then it's
Olofsson on that.
Then it's I guess Middlestat, Paterka, and maybe Krebs.
You got a plethora of guys there to pick from.
I mean, that's not a bad second unit.
You could name another. Your third unit would be still good too. I think that's a good
yeah. I don't think they go too far deep, but then you have the option when Quinn comes back, put him in there. Maybe
Boy's been a power play player his whole life. I'm not saying he's going to jump right in, but dude, we got skill, a lot of skill coming through.
Yeah, it's as much skill as they've had probably since 2011. So
2007 to me.
Yeah, I mean, and that penalty kill is going to be better too. As we talked about, Connor Clifton is a very good penalty killer. Yeah. Samuelson is obviously a great defensive defenseman. You have Gergensons, you have Jost. I think Cousins is a good penalty killer. Krebs can play penalty kill. You have a lot of guys you can slot in there. So, as we talked about, options.
There's some still names out there. Not to rush into it or get ready to wrap up here, but there's still some other names out there in free agency too that we've seen kind of floated around. The biggest name being Erik Karlsson, most rumored to probably go to Pittsburgh.
Well, that would have to be a trade, right?
Yes. I'm sorry, free agency. I apologize. Free agent, so, biggest guy still out there on the block would be Tarasenko, Patrick Kane. But Kane is, probably going to hold out until training camp when he's injured.
I mean, probably even later than that from what I hear.
I don't know. We'll see.
The article that came out on ESPN, Wyshynski wrote one up, basically interviewed his agent. He basically says he's going to take as much time as he needs to get 100% healthy. and then he's going to have his pick of the litter of who he wants to join.
Yeah. So
This article written. What about Matt Dumba? Did he sign yet?
Nope, Matt Dumba's still out there available.
I think the Sabres are about done adding on defense, though.
Yeah,
Patrick
I don't.
Kane?
What'd you say?
Patrick Kane.
We'll see. I mean, we'll see.
And I think a realistic target, I think Tarasenko is out of the question. I think
Martin Jones an upgrade on UPL?
Is who?
Martin Jones. You get him on the cheap.
I don't necessarily think he is.
I don't disagree. I just figured I'd float the question since he's still out there.
I think the only realistic upgrade, aside from Connor Hellebuck, which is probably not going to happen, over UPL that the Sabres could actually get, given what's transpired, is John Gibson.
Yeah.
And then aside from that, another guy you could bring in, I think we talked about it last time, is Thomas Tatar. I think he's a veteran guy who's proven he can produce. He could play in your middle six, up and down your lineup. He would be a good guy to bring in.
He's a good player. He's a good 200-foot player, man.
Yeah.
If you do add right now, I think it's one of those types of guys.
Erik Karlsson to Pittsburgh, does he move the needle far enough forward for that aging group?
I mean,
in order for them to make another push.
I don't want to ever count out Sidney Crosby, so there's always that. But I think you see it with Boston. I think you see closing windows there in Pittsburgh. I think you see him in Washington. So that's a good question, Duane. I don't ever want to count Sidney Crosby out, though.
I personally think Karlsson is going to end up with the Hurricanes. And that leaves an interesting discussion about Brett Pesce.
Yep.
Because they're not going to re-sign him, given that they already have Slavin, and I think Karlsson comes in there to pair with Brett Burns again. Do you trade for Brett Pesce?
Could you imagine that top four?
This is what I'm saying. Like, that's the type of thing.
You go through a bunch of horny hypotheticals.
No, Brett Pesce's been rumored to go to the Sabres for a while. And
they have called on him.
You think about the connections that Adams has to that organization. You think about the role that Brett Pesce would fill. That's absolutely your top four with Dahlin, Samuelsson, Power, and Brett Pesce. And then you put Clifton with Erik Johnson. And that is a bona fide top six. I mean, top six. That's a bona fide defensive core. Like, that is almost as good of a defensive core in the entire league, let alone, like...
Take it easy.
It is.
Yeah,
it is. Like, that is...
On paper is a lot different than on the ice. And there's some good teams out there.
I mean, Brett Pesce...
Vegas Golden Knights, they're back in 100%.
No, I'm with you. I'm just saying, like, you put...
I think he's saying that's the best group in the NHL.
I agree. I would love to add those pieces. I think we could... But there's a couple of really cool hypotheticals that all we are is... that one defenseman, like I always thought Seth Jones. That would have been an interesting one too.
I was listening to Spit and Chicklets today. They had Dan Girardi on, who is with the Sabres. Obviously, Iron Man defenseman. I think absolute warrior. I think he might be NHL all-time leader in like insane. I might be block shots. He's up there.
Those types of guys, heart and soul of the team.
His role on the team is kind of funky. His label on the team is not an assistant coach. He's an assistant to the coaching staff. He doesn't travel with the team, and he tries to make as many home games as he can. So it essentially sounds like he's like there to practice with the team and go over video with the defense, which is invaluable. Don't get me wrong, but like, has anyone ever heard of that?
Yeah,
the coaching staff.
I mean, it kind of sounds
in every organization, Duane.
Is it?
Yeah, they have different titles, but yes, 100%. You have guys that don't travel with the team, whose only job is to report to the coaching staff on X, Y, or Z. For him, it's what you just mentioned, right?
Yeah, goes over video with
some teams have bigger staffs than others, but yes, that's normal.
The guys on the show sounded kind of surprised when he went over his role with the team. It's just like
but they've been out of the league now for a bit. Were they really that surprised? Was Biz?
Oh yeah, they sounded pretty surprised. They thought it was like, wow, man, you have like the greatest coaching job in the world. You don't travel with the team.
Yeah, no, he's got a great setup for sure. I just think it's more common than we think.
Okay.
And that is the dream job, though.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it sounds like Dwight Schrute, like assistant to the regional manager.
No,
Yeah,
you just come to home games. You get to go up in the box. You know what I mean? To have a couple hot dogs, whatever.
We've talked about it. I don't think this coaching staff is nearly as good as it could be.
I think they had all the pieces to be a lot better within their own organization until they let them walk away.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate, but
Like Becca.
is what it is. I mean,
I agree.
You see what happens. You see what happens with Pace and Prospel down in the AHL, and maybe they are grooming them to come up eventually. Who knows?
Yeah, hey, don't worry, we got Matt Ellis.
So, hey, all faith in Donnie Meatballs, and then we'll go from there. I think we all can be happy that Ralph Kruger and Phil Housley and Dan Bilesma and
Stop it! You're making
Ted
my
Newton.
heart
I just think that we have a good coach. We have a good coach that the players love. We can just be happy with that.
The only other NHL news over the last 48 hours would be the Gail Chenyuk news.
This is personal for me. I'm out on this.
You're out on this?
I love you guys. Yeah, no comment for me.
No comments from Johnny Cullen
and Gail Chenyuk. I just hope he's healthy and in good spirits.
Well, that's we're not here to shit on Alex Galchenyuk.
I know. I just had a tough day with dealing with it.
He came out with a statement today apologizing to fans and
I read it.
People. It was accepted accountability, and he entered the program, the player assistance program, which is good.
Should have been there before. I just wish. All I'll say is this: I take that back. That's wrong of me to say. I hope Alex gets back to being a healthy, happy Alex, because he was fun to be around, and he was like a little brother to me. And he was Yakupov's interpreter, so a lot of good, fun memories with him. It hurts to see him in this situation, so it's home to me. But I gotta go. I love you, boys. I'll let you finish this story up.
All right, that was Johnny Cullen making his rare appearance, I guess, as of late, but Gail Chenyuk entering the players assistance program. He's been a little bit of a suitcase around the league. He
played on so many different teams.
Yeah,
you got to think that gets to you mentally, right?
Well, that, and I guess Johnny has maybe a little more detailed information from playing with them in juniors, but good to see him get the assistance that he's number one, accepting accountability. Not playing the victim, accepting accountability. That's big. Whether that's a PR move or an own personal move. I read the statement.
Yeah, I read these statements all the time because this is the type of story that we do. That was one of the better statements I've read.
I agree.
You can make it sound as genuine as it want, and everyone's going to say it's just for PR. But
you can tell he wrote that.
He had to know that he really messed up, and I think it gets to the point where it's your career is going to go one way or another at this point, right? You're either going to accept accountability and get help and change your ways and realize you have a problem and accept it and try to work on it, or your life is going to spiral down into a very dark path. So it seems like he's at least working towards the former, and that's the best thing you can hope for.
And we've seen other players enter that program too. Carey Price, Spencer Knight, now Alex Galchenyuk.
It's just good that it's there, and it's actually one of the best things the NHL does. So, and
I hope that, given that statement, and I could tell that it was genuine and that he wrote it himself. It wasn't dictated to him by an agent or anything like that, or something for PR. He truly meant it. I hope that when he gets out, and as Johnny stated, that he's a healthier version of himself and happier, that he does catch on to another team and maybe get another chance, because everybody deserves a second chance. And we don't know what types of demons he's dealt with throughout his life. We all know people in different walks of life that have dealt with things that we didn't necessarily know were privy to or knew about. I know I have. I don't know what you. I'm assuming you have. I think we all have. And thankfully, it took him hitting rock bottom and getting to a really, terrible situation for him to realize that he needed help, and he's going to get it. And happy that he's accepting accountability and going to get help and become healthier and a better version of himself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's good example for a lot of younger players to look at and
Mhm.
realize that being a professional athlete isn't the easiest thing in the world. Like, these guys are exposed to a lot of different influences. They are exposed to a lot of pressure. Of course, money's money, but at the end of the day, like, if you're not happy and you're facing a lot of different inward demons, like, you can go down a really, really dark path. So,
and he even said it, the decisions he made and the mistakes he made are preventing him from doing the thing that he loves the most, and that's playing hockey. You know what I mean? Granted, yeah, he's not going to have a paycheck, sure, but he wants to play hockey because that's what he loves.
No, I think he's young enough that, given that he's addressing this now, he'll be able to figure it out, and hopefully he'll be better off for it.
Agreed. So, who else was in his draft year? The Galchenyuk draft year. Yeah,
what year?
I almost want to say that might have been the Girgensons' year.
2013.
I don't know. I think he might be even younger than that.
So, yeah, I don't know. If it was 13, then it's Ekblad and Sam Reinhart, and maybe no, I could be wrong on that. But either way,
I actually, it might have been the Ristolainen draft year. I'll look right now. Alex Galchenyuk, age 29. He was drafted he was a 3rd overall pick in 2012, actually. So players ahead of him, I can't remember, in 2012.
Yakupov.
That was the Nail Yakupov draft. Oof.
Yeah. Yakupov, Galchenyuk goes number 3. Sabres take Girgensons.
It was the Girgensons draft then. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to say the Sabres might have even had 2 first-round picks that year.
They didn't, but they took Jake McCabe in the 2nd round. Or maybe they did have 2 first-round picks. Either way. Yeah.
Might have been actually the year they might have had 2, I think.
Oh, no, they took Grigorenko and Girgensons. Yeah.
Yes, Grigorenko, correct.
Yeah.
Played junior hockey for Patrick Waugh.
Ramparts.
Yep. Patrick Waugh was the head coach. And then I want to say the following year, the year after that, was the year that we took both Zadorov and Ristolainen in the same draft.
Yes.
So, but I got any final thoughts?
I think we just about covered it. I think as we continue to get into the summer, we'll have a bit of a clearer picture of what's going to happen. I mean, this is kind of a dead time in the league.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, NFL training camp is starting soon, so like the NHL is really, really going to be out of the news cycle. I just at least hope there are some moves made, or at least there are some rumors, or biggest news that could possibly happen for the next 2 weeks are the Dahlin and Power
extensions. Yeah, I think everybody's kind of
waiting. I think we're getting closer and closer for that to becoming a reality.
Well, initially, it was reported that it would happen on July 1st, and obviously,
yeah, and like right now, I think they're just hammering out legal details.
Yeah.
I think definitely towards the end of July, it's more and more of a possibility. And once those get figured out, they're going to have a better idea of their cap, better idea of potential trades they could make, who they're going to ship out, who they could bring in. Because as much as we potentially could be at least confident this will be the opening night lineup on October 12th against the Rangers, I don't necessarily think it will be. So
as we sit right now, I think we would lean more that it will be than it won't be. But I definitely still think you never know, man. Kevin Adams' phone, he might not be actively looking for somebody right now, but somebody could always call him.
If the opportunity presents itself, I think he will always try to make the team better. And I think he could absolutely do that in the middle to bottom 6 and at the backup goalie position. So,
yeah. We'll see what happens. Yeah. What's today's date? Today is it was just 7/16 day. So
today is July 18th.
The 18th. So obviously July 18th, getting closer to August. I don't know how many days closer to the start of the season. Can't wait. Personally, I can't wait for the Prospects Challenge. But with that being said, stay tuned for next week, episode 133. We will be joined by Sabres alumni and host of the After the Whistle podcast, Andrew Peters, will be joining us next week, Tuesday. And sooner rather than later, Matthew Fairburn, who we discussed his article tonight on the show, he will be joining us too at some point, hopefully here fairly soon. So, but next week, Tuesday, big announcement, Andrew Peters will be joining the show for a second time. And maybe we'll touch on some of the stuff we talked about today. And we have some, some questions more gauged towards him and his career too. Can't wait to talk to him. So remember, this is brought to you by Outlet Liquor, the place to buy a case over on George Urban Boulevard. The place to buy a case, Outlet Liquor. Tell them the boys from Two Goalies when Mike sent you. And please remember to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get to listen or watch your podcast. Subscribe to us there. I'm sure we're on those platforms. Hurls, it's always a pleasure, bud. It is getting close to my bedtime. I know it's not even 7:00 where you are, right? It's what?
Yeah, but believe me, man, I'm tired.
Yeah, me too. So, we'll talk to you guys next week when we're joined by Andrew Peters, and you guys enjoy the rest of your night. Go Sabres.